You ever get that feeling you're being watched? I'm not talking about your search history or your location data. I mean, what if it was about something way more personal, your own mind? Today, we are diving deep into the battle for your brain, which is really the last frontier of privacy. Okay, let's get into it.
Seriously, just think about that for a second. The coffee you bought this morning, the show you decided to binge last night, were those decisions really 100% yours? Well, the answer is a whole lot more complicated than you might think.
You've actually seen this in action every single time you walk into a grocery store. You know how the most expensive brands are right at eye level? That's no accident. It's called choice architecture, and it's the subtle art of designing the world around you to kind of gently nudge you toward a certain decision, all without actually forcing your hand.
And now, this whole idea of choice architecture is getting supercharged in the digital world, especially in education. They call it edu-nudging. Think about digital learning platforms using these little nudges, like reminders about assignments or giving out virtual badges to keep students on track. But what happens when these nudges get a lot more sophisticated?
Well, when it's used for good, this stuff can be incredibly powerful. Take Georgia State University. They use this system with predictive analytics and personalized nudges that help boost their graduation rate by 7 percentage points. That's literally thousands of students who made it to the finish line, partly thanks to these tiny algorithmic pushes.
But here's the thing. We're starting to move way beyond just gentle nudges. We are entering an era where technology doesn't just influence your choices, it might actually be able to access the source of those choices directly inside your head.
For legal scholar Nita Farahany, this was a massive wake-up call. When Meta, Facebook, bought a company called CTRL Labs that was developing wristbands to decode neural signals, she realized the game had totally changed. Suddenly, brain sensors weren't just for sci-fi movies or research labs anymore. They were about to be in our everyday gadgets.
And I want to be clear, this is not science fiction. This is happening right now. Neurotech is already being used to monitor employee attention with brain-sensing headsets. Neuromarketing firms are tracking your subconscious reactions to ads. There are fatigue detection systems for truckers that analyze their brainwaves in real time. We are talking about technology that can literally get inside your head.
So here's the crucial point. We've got this incredibly powerful new technology, but we're trying to manage it with laws and rules that were written for a completely different century. Our legal frameworks, well, they're just not built for this.
And this is where we hit a major wall. We all get the right to freedom of speech, right? It protects the things you decide to say out loud. But what about all the thoughts you don't say? The crazy thing is, there's no explicit right to freedom of thought, no legal shield for that silent, private conversation you're always having with yourself.
This is where a brand new idea comes into the picture. To protect our inner world in this crazy new age, experts are proposing a new fundamental human right, the right to cognitive liberty. So, what does that actually mean? Put simply, cognitive liberty is the right to control your own brain and your own mental experiences. It's all about making sure that you and only you are the ultimate decider of your own thoughts and feelings. And this big idea is built on 3 core pillars. First, you've got mental privacy. Pretty straightforward. The right to keep your brain data private. Second, freedom of thought. The right to think whatever you want without being penalized. And third, self-determination, which is the right to control your own mind and not have it manipulated. Okay, but mental privacy isn't totally absolute. Let's take that truck driver, for example. While their random thoughts and feelings are their own, society has a pretty legitimate interest in making sure they aren't about to fall asleep at the wheel, right? So it's all about finding that balance between our individual rights and public safety.
Freedom of thought, on the other hand, that is seen as absolute. This is what protects your inner monologue, your daydreams, your secret worries, your random shower thoughts. It basically says that this core part of who you are is completely off limits. It can't be decoded, it can't be recorded, and it can't be used against you, period.
Now, it's also really important here to separate the hype from the reality. Technology that can decode the words you intend to type just by thinking them, yeah, that's probably coming sooner than we think. But technology that can just read your random, private, inner monologue, that is a vastly, vastly harder problem to solve.
So, the big question is, how do we turn these really cool ideas into actual real-world protections? That brings us to the global debate that's heating up as we speak.
And this conversation is moving at lightning speed. I mean, the whole concept of neuro rights was only really proposed in 2017, and by 2021, Chile had already written it directly into their constitution, becoming the first nation in the world to do that.
So, broadly speaking, there are two main ways to tackle this. On one hand, you've got soft law, which is things like industry guidelines. They're flexible, but they don't really have any teeth. Then there's hard law, like what Chile did. It's powerful for sure, but it also raises some serious concerns about being too restrictive and maybe slowing down important scientific research.
And believe me, this debate is far from over. Critics argue that Chile's groundbreaking law is just too vague, that it was passed too soon, and that it could actually end up hurting mental health research. It just goes to show you how complex and high stakes these decisions really are.
So, all of this brings us right back to this fundamental question about who gets to control our most personal information. It really is a battle for your brain, and the outcome, well, it depends on the choices we all make right now.
You know, just think about how social media basically turned our personal data into a commodity before we even really understood what was happening. We are in that exact same kind of moment before right now with our brain data. We have this very small, very brief window of opportunity to set the rules of the game before the genie is all the way out of the bottle.
And maybe the single biggest change we could make is to just flip the default setting. Instead of the opt-out system we have now, where companies take your data unless you hunt down a way to stop them, we could create an opt-in model. Your brain data would be private by default. Period. And companies would need your explicit, informed permission to touch it.
And let's be really clear here. This isn't about stopping progress or innovation. The potential for neurotechnology to treat diseases and improve our lives is absolutely immense. The goal is just to make sure that we build that amazing future on a foundation that respects human rights and empowers personal choice.
Look, our brain activity is about to become the most valuable resource on the planet. It's the next gold rush. So the question we all have to ask is, who gets to write the terms of service for our own minds?